What's going on, everybody? We are back. We got episode number 245. I think it's actually 245. I have it saying 244, but I'm pretty sure it's 245 of the Club and Sub podcast. Uh, Took the last 2 weeks and just did some spaces on Saturday, but we decided we had to get back into it and do, what we've always done. So we're back Wednesday night, our more or less original time slot here. Yeah, we're going to get into this card. UFC Vegas 113. Guys, as always, if you like the show, drop a like and subscribe. We got the first of many Club and Sub podcast episodes coming to you this year. And yeah, I mean, we can go into I don't have my results up, but I lost like 3 units, I think, last week. Really sad, honestly, because
One and a half unit.
Yeah, I had Malmoon for a fair amount, which went well.
Same.
But I had the Yiza under, which was fucking AIDS, and I had the over 2.5 or over 1.5 in Malarkey and Saul killed for a fair amount, and I felt like I felt like it was priced like that because of the assumption Jamie just couldn't take a shot, but like he didn't get knocked out. It just turned out, Saul killed's a beast, man. Just ran through him on the mat. So yeah, lost last week, but you know what? We get back on the trike and I like this card a lot. You were telling me you don't love it so much on the betting.
At least for money lines. I think I'll dive into the props and totals. But
I've only made 2 bets thus far, but I feel like I will have a fair amount more than that. So, yeah. Without further ado, let's get into it. First fight night of the year, first fight night ever on Paramount, and we are back in the small cage in Vegas. First fight of the night, we have Priscilla Cachoeira. She's taking on Claudia Sajula. Current price, Sajula minus 150. The comeback on Cachoeira plus 130. Man, I really wanted to get to a Claudia Sajula bet. As you know, I am like the head president of the Cachoeira Haters Club. I'm basically trying to fade her with just about anybody I can. So, I really, really wanted to bet Sajula, especially she's like 10 years younger than Cachoeira. She's a bit faster. Obviously, she's a bit more technically refined. But, man, like I look at the tape and it's like she's not much of a grappler. She's not a terrible striker, but she brawls a lot and she doesn't have the power to brawl and she doesn't have much defense. And she's fighting Cachoeira, who – the one thing Priscilla can do is fucking brawl, and she actually does have, a lot of power. So I look at it, and I still keep most of, like, my thoughts on Cachoeira here, that, like, if she doesn't find a finish or a couple of huge moments, she's probably drawing pretty thin, just since, she doesn't throw a lot of volume, she's easy to hit, and she's easy to grapple. But at the same time, I'm pretty sure these women are going to bite down and throw, and if they bite down and throw, I almost have to edge Cachoeira there. I haven't decided if I'll bet it or not. Maybe. I was just telling you, I saw some books are hanging like plus 250 for the Cachoeira KO, and I think that does capture a bit more of her upside than, the plus 130 money line. But I do lean that side. What do you think, Danny?
Yeah, we were just chatting about this, and to be honest with you, that's the only route I could go if we were playing Cachoeira would be the KO. Like I can't play money line at plus 125, plus 130. Like it's just
2-minute negative.
Yeah. 100%. She needs that finish. And so plus 250 has interest, plus 200 even. I'm totally interested. And like Sajula 100% could land some like body lock takedowns. You see it a little bit in her tape, but like not a great wrestler. And her striking, as you touched on, she doesn't have a ton of power. So if they end up going blow for blow, it's hard not to like cash at plus 200 for the KO.
Yeah, and it seems like that's probably what'll happen, honestly. So yeah.
Or even the under. I like pick them.
Yeah, agreed. Moving on, we got Nikolai Veretnikov. He's taking on Nico Price. Current price, Veretnikov minus 275. The comeback on Price plus 235. What do you think, Danny?
Is this the next fight on here? I'm looking on Tapology and Gafferov's next.
Oh, I don't have Tapology up. I have fight odds. When is it? Or what's next on here?
Gafferov, Wicklocks. We could talk about Price. Price is like
yeah. Let's talk about Price real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. All right, I'll talk first, I guess. Yeah. I don't have a ton to say on it. I just think that Price is kind of washed at this point. I'm surprised he's even getting another fight. Like, I don't think much of Veretnikov. Kind of a generalist, decent everywhere, okay striker, decent pop in his hands. Like, I just think he's better than Nico at this stage of his career, really.
Yeah, I mean, look, Nico's washed. Like, there's no question about that. I have to say, it's really hard to avoid that conclusion. However, I think Nikolai Veretnikov is to men's MMA what Priscilla Cachoeira is to women's MMA. He is just terrible. He's medium volume. He's gassy. He can't grapple at all. I sort of think he's gonna like crumble Price with a body kick here and finish him. But I look at the fight and I'm like, man, like it wouldn't shock me if like old ass Nico just like out volumed him like he did Morono, and this dude gasses out. It wouldn't shock me if Price got a couple takedowns and just won via control. I don't know, man. Like I really don't want to have, my dollar staked on Nico Price, so I'll very likely pass. But I mean, Veretnikov's terrible, dude. He's shown nothing to suggest that he's UFC level. You know what I mean? And he's shown a lot to suggest that he's not. And, Nico is, what is he, like a 15, 16 UFC fights now? Like, the guy's been around forever. He's pretty crafty. That win against Morono, it was a year or two ago, was pretty impressive. And honestly, even his last performance, like, Jacobe Smith's good. He's going to fight on the next card. And, like, Nico kind of hung in there for a bit against, like, an absolute athletic freak. He did, dude.
Yeah, he hung on for a little bit,
Dude, Jacobe Smith would literally stick his balls on fucking Nikolai Veretnikov's head. Like it is.
What I will say though is Morono though, is that impressive of a win though? I mean, we'll touch on Morono like later on the card a bit.
No, it's not. But like, I would feel fine about Morono against like Veretnikov. I mean, I wouldn't feel fine about it. But like, you're talking about two wash guys. But like, I wouldn't feel fine about Nikolai Veretnikov against more or less anybody who can bring like some kind of comprehensive game plan, into the cage. You know what I mean?
Especially minus 280.
Yeah, dude. Like what? This guy was minus 130 with Francisco Prado, who's also quite poor. And that was a super competitive fight. So, like, yeah, I don't know. I think Price is the side. I don't know if I'll bet it because, like, I'm trying to avoid betting on these wash guys. But the price is starting to kind of tug at my heartstrings a little bit.
What I will say, though, one of the comments in the chat, though, said finish only. I think there's enough merit to Sajula finishing on the mat, like to that.
Cash is a very finishable fighter.
I would rather like a fight doesn't go the distance at that price than a finish only for Cash.
Yeah, I think a fight doesn't go isn't terrible. Moving on though, we got Muin Gafferov. He's taking on Jacobe Wicklocks. Lags, throw it to you first. Current price, Gafferov minus 140. The comeback on Wicklocks plus 120. What do you think?
So I played Gafferov at minus 130 to win a unit and a half. I think to me, like, I'm just not impressed from that last fight. I know it's a squeaked out win against Patchy, but like Wicklocks to me is not a great fighter. A striker, he doesn't have a ton of tools on the feet, and to me he's just more of an opportunistic grappler than anything. His wrestling's okay. He has some tools on the feet to damage, as we saw in the Patchy fight, but like Gafferov's going to throw hammers on the feet. Should be able to defend some of the takedowns if he's able to keep it upright more often than not. I think he could even gas Wicklocks down the stretch. So yeah, I think he can keep it up more often than not. So I like it minus 130. Even current price isn't bad.
I am like debating a Gafferov play. I was much more keen on it at like minus 117, and then I just missed the price movement. I thought it was going to be pretty two-way, and it just hasn't been. It seemed to be mostly Gafferov's team. I think on the feet, I'm with you 100%. I think Gafferov should absolutely wreck this guy on the feet. He's been knocked out twice regionally. I've seen him hurt a number of other times. He does not have much defense whatsoever. He's slower. He doesn't bring much power to the table. He's very easy to find. And Gafferov, obviously kind of a wild man. In the grappling, I don't think it'll be easy for Wicklocks to actually get this fight to the mat. I just don't think he's much of a wrestler. So again, that's kind of a signal toward the Gafferov side. What I will say is I do feel like this is in a lot of respects an IQ test for Gafferov early, and I don't really trust Gafferov's IQ all that much. I really think if he goes to the ground with Wicklocks, he's gonna get I don't know if he's going to get subbed, but I think Wicklocks can put him in some trouble there. His sweeps, he's a very, very unconventional grappler. His sweeps are really, really good, and they're very tricky to deal with. And I also just don't like that Gafferov, when he gets into a scramble, kind of likes to counter grapple into it. I think that's a recipe for, him ending up in a precarious position or two against Wicklocks. Like, you've seen it happen to him in a couple fights where, like, he's kind of scrambled himself out of bottom position into being mounted, stuff like that. And like I do, yeah.
I was gonna say even the Kang fight had like super sketchy moments.
And he's like not
he's not like he's an okay grappler, and that's probably the best trade he's got. But and same with Wicklocks here.
Yeah, so like I think Wicklocks submitting him is very live. I think Wicklocks maybe janking a decision because he makes a couple mistakes is pretty live, and then it's like, I don't trust Gafferov's cardio at all. I don't trust Wicklocks' cardio all that much either, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, in the aggregate, I think Gafferov clearly has the much better skill set here. He should win this fight. He should knock Wicklocks out, in my opinion. But I think there's a little bit of value on the current line. I haven't decided if I'll play minus 140. I am like, it's really bugging me that I missed the earlier price this week, honestly. But yeah, I mean, Gafferov should win, but I do think there is scope for Wicklocks to win this fight. Moving on, we have got Wang taking on Eduardo Mora. Current price, Wang's a big favorite here. She is minus 350. The comeback on Mora plus 285. I like the I kind of like the fight to go the distance here, to be honest with you. Plus money, what is it? I think it's plus 180 last I looked. It might even be a bigger north than that. Plus 2. No. Sorry. It actually moved a lot. I'm looking at the wrong fight. I was like, that can't be right. I'm seeing like minus 325. I'm like, what the fuck?
I was like,
no, it's minus 155 to go the distance.
Okay.
I think from a fight perspective, I think Wang should be fine. I think she's got the tools to either keep it upright or work up off takedowns. And she's a much better striker. I think, you saw Wang show a lot more discipline in her last fight with Bruna Brazil, where she was kind of happy to take, what Bruna gave her and just win a pretty easy decision there. I kind of expect she'll do the same here if it's presented to her, where it's like she's not going to go crazy chasing her down, just kind of keep her at the end of her punches and kicks. And, because I don't really think Mora offers anything to threaten her with on the feet in this fight.
No.
On the Mora side, yeah, I just don't rate Mora all that highly. She's not a very good. She's a pretty bad striker. She's low volume. She doesn't have the best cardio. She is a good grappler. Like if she gets on top of you, she can pose.
She's a chain wrestler with no cardio, and that's a huge issue.
That's the bigger problem. So yeah, I mean, unless she can just get Wang down easily and control her, which I'd be surprised at, I think she's up against it here. But like I said, I like the fight to go the whole way, just because I don't think Wang is going to I think Wang's going to be very cognizant of the grappling threat coming back at her here, pick her shots, fight intelligently, and ultimately win a decision. Yeah. So I like it to go. What do you think here?
No, I like that take. And like I said, before we even hopped on the show, I didn't really look at much totals or props, but I like that GTD because to your point, I think she's able to stuff the takedowns here. Mora, like I mentioned, I think is just super gassy. He's not going to be able to implement that chain wrestling style. So yeah, I think it's a Wang decision, but I think GTD is a safer look. I think Mora is able to stay safe in those later rounds, even if tired. And I don't see a ton of finishing upside early with Mora.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on, we got Saeed Nurmagomedov. He is taking on Javid Basharat. It's a really cool fight. Current price, Basharat is minus 130. The comeback on Nurmagomedov is plus 110. What do you think here, Danny?
This is one that kind of interests me. I don't know if I'm going to get in on the Javid side just because I'm just not super convicted really on the side. I just feel like it's going to be a closely contested fight on the feet, pretty low tempo, but I just feel like he's able to avoid, Saeed's super low volume, just spinny shit on the feet and opportunistic grappler at the highest level really. And I just don't think Javid's going to be able to stick his neck at anything like that. In terms of the grappling, he should be able to land takedowns if he wants to. Huge cardio edge. So
I mean, Saeed stinks. Let's be honest. Like he's
a high rolling finishing merchant.
Yes,
that's what I hate about it. And it sucks, man.
It's a real skill, right?
Right,
it wins you a lot of fights.
Right, we both bet Saeed Jacobe back in the day.
Yeah. That was. Oh no, I bet Saeed. I got very lucky.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Never mind. Maybe
you nailed it though. You nailed what he is. That's like. He is explosive. He's got, he can throw some torque behind like all the spinning stuff he throws. That's pretty dangerous. He's obviously got a nasty guillotine. he's an okay wrestler and he's an okay striker, but his game is
It's
totally
an IQ test.
impractical. Yeah. He has no IQ, and the
No,
problem is,
I'm saying for Javid, it's an IQ
oh
test.
yeah.
Yes.
I think for Said, he doesn't know how to fight like at a normal pace. Like his whole game is based around like spinning and big explosive movements, and the problem is he has no cardio at all. When he does get into lower tempo fights, his defense kind of falls apart. We've seen him honestly look a bit like kind of flimsy, like almost like a weenie at times, and just kind of get, muscled in like the clinch and in the wrestling. Yeah, he's a high rolling meme, like you said. Javid on the other side, Javid's a lot less dangerous than he is, but Javid's a very, very processed fighter, I'd argue. He's a very intelligent fighter. He picks his shots pretty well. He's got pretty good defense, Ricky Simone fight aside, but he has historically had, really good defense. He measures distance well. He's a pretty strong wrestler. He's a good submission grappler. He's very, very cognizant of the threats that his opponents bring back at him. And he's got pretty good cardio. And to me, I look at this fight and like, it's really hard for me. It's not hard for me to imagine Said maybe winning a decision on a couple moments or landing something crazy and spinning. But I do think Javid, given, his fight IQ, is going to be pretty hip to like most of the shit Said wants to put out there. And so I do give him an edge in just about every realm other than just like dynamic finishing ability, to be honest. But like, I think Javid can wrestle him if he wants. Javid's not really a guy who's doing outside singles where he's going to be vulnerable to that choke. He likes to wrestle out of the clinch more. I think he's the better boxer here. And obviously, I think he's going to win round 3 at a big clip. I haven't bet him yet, but I do think there's some value on the Javid line. I made him like, I think he should be like minus 185, minus 200 range personally. He's just a cleaner, more intelligent, more processed technician than what Said is. Moving on, we have got Bruna Brazil taking on Ketlin Souza. Current price, Souza is a favorite. She's minus 150. The comeback on Brazil plus 130. I'm leaning the Brazil side here. Again, it's actually one that I thought pre-tape I'd almost definitely be betting Souza on, just because Brazil does have that tendency to kind of just keep her head straight on the center line or chin up, and Souza does pack some power. But like taping it, I actually don't think Souza's as big a KO threat in this context of this fight as I initially thought. Because you really got to close distance hard on Bruna to get in there and land on her because she's so fucking long and so tall. And that's not really Ketlin Souza's game. She's not going to go forward and string together combinations. She tends to be pretty medium, low volume on the outside, like a shot here, a shot there. That's it. Just try to land power shots. And, when she does win minutes, which is not often, it's usually on moments. She's been outlanded in, I think, every fight she's been in the UFC thus far. She's not a good grappler. I think Bruna probably perhaps has less power than her, but she's much faster. She's longer. I think she's just a much better technician than Souza is. I think she's got more reliable volume if she wants to go to it. For Bruna, the biggest issue I always have is I wonder about her confidence, because it seems like, in the Molly fight, you could see she fought extremely confident for most of that fight. But then you have fights like the Lubunmi fight where it's basically like a staring contest and she gives the fight away.
I feel like
that's
a lot
happened.
of her fights are like that.
Yeah.
Chime in. She seems super low volume, and like I could see Souza just squeaking out a decision here just off the power shots.
You're right. I think she is she's basically a kind of like a coin flip fighter, right? Because she basically, all of her fights tend to come down, with the exception of the Molly fight, most of her fights tend to come down to an exchange or two in each round, right? That end up swinging them. But I do think she's got the grappling upside here. I do think she's better in the clinch. To your point, I do worry about it turning into that kind of a fight, but I feel like this should be more like Pick'em to slight lean Bruna than like Ketlin minus 150. Like, if our base case is it's going to come down to a few exchanges per round, I kind of trust, the faster, more efficient, more technical striker in that kind of a fight who also has grappling upside. What do you think, Lex?
I was thinking Souza like minus 125, honestly. Like, that's how I price it personally. Like, slight favorite because of those power shots on the feet. I don't see a ton of wrestling upside from the Brazil side. And I think in terms of the volume, I think Souza's probably a little bit more reliable, personally.
Okay. Interesting.
I would not like to shock, though. I will say. Like,
no, I'm going to probably bet Bruna small, honestly. I just feel like I have to. Like, like Souza's been a dog in every one of her UFC fights, and now she's a favorite here. Like that's kind of stupid in my opinion. Moving on, we have got Alex Morono. He's taking on Danil Donenko. Donenko, big favorite here. He is minus 725. The comeback on Morono plus 525. We're putting Morono out to pasture here, I think, Lags.
You taking it over 1.5 like you did in Southkill?
I'm taking. You want to know what I'm taking? I'm taking the GTD, and I think I'm probably going to take the Donenko by decision. Honestly, right. I look. Donenko's aggressive and he hits hard.
But he's more of a point striker. Yeah.
He is. And Alex Morono is like Alex Morono in recent years is like, I'm going to run for my life and try to not engage you all that often, you know? Now, against someone in a small cage like Carlos Leal, who's just like a berserker and is going to bite the mouthpiece and just wing wild combos at you, you don't really have a choice. But I think Donenko might let him do it, you know? I wouldn't be shocked at it at all. It's a small cage. But Morono is also a vet, you know, and I could see it being the kind of thing where, you know, it ends up on the ground a couple times. And like Morono's tough to finish on the ground. He's got good jiu-jitsu. You know, he's obviously a veteran. I don't know, man. Like, it's like, I look, I mean, I've always been a fan. It's going to be sweaty. It's plus 300, right? But I do sort of think it's like, you know, Alex Morono, he went to decisions with Daniel Rodriguez, Nico Price, and Yoki Buckley in the last 2 years. Like that's not that crazy to think he could go to decision here. Certainly, I think more than 25% in my opinion. But I do favor Donenko pretty dramatically given where Morono is at in his career at this point. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a great read in terms of like the fight itself. Obviously Donenko's a huge favorite. I would lean the over 1.5. Price just isn't great to me. And I feel like the finish to me is probably going to happen in those middle rounds if there is likely to be a finish.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he's going to come out here and just spark him. I think if anything, it's going to be maybe like he beats the body a little bit, maybe takes him down, decent shots in the clinch.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. Up next, we have my biggest bet of the card so far. We got Dustin Jacobe. He's taking on Julius Juicebox Walker. Current price, Jacobe is minus 185. Walker's plus 160. I have 3 units on Walker here. I am, I don't know. I've always been a big Jacobe guy, you know, but I do think, I think people are looking a little too much at how easy Walker is to hit. And Jacobe having got up against a bunch of guys that aren't good grapplers and being like, oh, Jacobe can easily just work up here and spark Walker on the feet. You know, I think that's the general, the read of the room that I'm getting, you know, and it's like, well, first of all, Dustin Jacobe is about to be 38 years old in a month. He's an old guy. His durability is very clearly declining. You know, he's been knocked out a few times lately. He gets hurt quite often.
And he's easy to touch on the feet too.
Yeah, very easy to touch on the feet if you go at him. You know, he's fighting a very young guy in Julius Walker, who just turned 26 and who has really, I think, elite athleticism for the 205-pound division. But to me, and so like on the feet, yeah, I mean, Jacobe's a much better striker. It's not, I don't debate that. But like, I look at Jacobe and it's like, I mean, I don't think he's going to be pumping volume against Walker. You know, he wasn't pumping volume against, you know, Petrino. Now, Petrino's a little bit better of a striker than Walker, but like, do you think that much so? Like, Petrino's really easy to hit himself, you know, and you could see Jacobe was kind of a little careful about pulling the trigger against someone who hits hard. And I kind of think that's going to be the case here. And I do think, you know, Walker knocking him out on the feet wouldn't be the craziest thing that's ever happened. Walker does have power and Jacobe can be hurt. But the biggest thing to me is the grappling, because like, I know Jacobe, you know, Jacobe's very easy to take down if you're a decent wrestler. He only has 60% takedown defense for his career. You know, kind of the market opinion on him is that he's got a very good get-up game. And I do think for the 205-pound division, he does have a very good get-up game. Like 205 pounds, there's just not a lot of guys with like good jiu-jitsu and control who can like if you give your back and, post on the head, like, you know, there's not a lot of guys that can stop to a 205. You know, you have to, because not a lot of guys do jiu-jitsu up there. Walker is kind of the rare guy though who actually puts hooks in like aggressively. Like he jumps the back very quickly and he's actually very good at controlling those positions. And like I went back through Jacobe's like whole tape of grappling, and like no one's ever really tried to do that to him. Like Kudalaba had many opportunities to, but that's not really his game, and he was kind of happy to just ride the back and throw punches rather than rather for like the whole round rather than control him. And he didn't have much issue controlling him against the fence. Whereas I think Walker, if he gets his hooks in on him, he's going to flatten him out, and he's going to probably beat him up. Now maybe Jacobe can get up fast enough before he can do that each time. That's possible. But even if he can do that, I'm not convinced. Like, look, I know Walker slows down, but you got to give Walker some credit. Guy dug deep in round 3 against Menefield and was still like exhausted and forcing the wrestling. Even in his last fight, like I know it's Cerquera and I know he sucks. And I know he landed a couple bombs on Walker in the 3rd round, but Walker being tired in round 3 of that fight, having just been wobbled on the feet, was able to go back to the wrestling and mug him the last 2.5 minutes of the ground. So like, I actually think Walker can dig through fatigue pretty well. And I am not sure Jacobe's going to be able to disengage. Like I look at this fight and I see a guy in Walker who's young, getting better, athletic, and a pretty good grappler. I see a guy in Jacobe who's old, getting worse, whose durability is declining, and who is not a very good grappler. And to me, I think it's got to be at worst to pick him. I kind of favor Walker like slightly. I made him like minus 120 here personally. So yeah, I'm on Walker for a pretty big. What do you think here, Lex?
Yeah, I'm not as passionately as you are, but I do have a play on Walker as well. 1 unit.
Oh, nice.
60. Yeah. I think there's definitely moments for him on the feet, even though he's not the better striker of the two. And as you touched on, there's huge wrestling upside for sure. So it's hard not to at plus 160. Not to mention, as you did, the age of Jacobe.
It's huge,
getting old.
Dude.
And 2, he was supposed to be fighting on 325 against Jimmy Crute. He was cornering Brundage.
And he went out there. Yeah, that's the crazy thing.
So now he's coming. So now he's coming back the next week to fight this week. In Vegas.
And it probably takes like literally. I don't know if you've been international much, but like it takes a couple days to get over like jet
Germany.
lag, Yeah.
And now imagine going to Australia, and now he's going to be fighting a grapple heavy fight in Walker, high pace,
in Vegas,
high volume in Vegas.
Less than a week later.
What's the under? I think that's an interesting look, maybe.
The under is under 2.5 minus 125. But see, that's the other thing to me too, dude. Because like if I tell you the fight goes the distance, don't you think Walker's winning that at like a really good clip? Just because if it's going the distance, he's getting his wrestling going. Like that's gonna happen. I think
you would think so.
Yeah, I can't picture Walker just getting like 1-2 in the face for 15 minutes and like not ever getting his wrestling going without him getting KO'd,
And it's just a nothing burger in the clinch, really. Nothing going on. Yeah.
I think he might fucking own him in the clinch, to be honest. But
right, I'm saying like we're talking about in that scenario, but yeah, 100%.
Moving on though, we have another cool fight here. The other Basharat brother, the better one. We got John Matsumoto. He's taking on Farid Basharat. Current price Basharat minus 260. The comeback Matsumoto plus 220. What do you think here, Danny?
I honestly think Farid's one of the safer legs of the week. I think on the feet, much more technical striker, should be able to avoid the bot-like nature of Gene coming forward. He just doesn't have a ton of nuance to his game on the feet, and you've kind of seen that in his last couple fights, especially in the Fawn fight. And not to mention, Farid can go to the grappling here, can definitely stay safe, land takedowns. I think it's a solid spot here.
Yeah, I feel like Gene is like, I don't want to say he's bad or he stings because that's not true. Obviously, he's had some like competitive fights with like pretty good fighters. High floor, very low ceiling though. He doesn't have much power in his hands at all. Yeah. I don't think his grappling. I mean, he's got a decent get up game, but like I don't think his offensive grappling is really all that good. And he's fighting Farid here, and I'm with you, man. I think Farid. I don't want to say he mugs him, but I feel like he wins this fight at a clip that's larger than what the line is. The issue for me is just like I'm positive Farid can get takedowns here, a lot of them. And I think he's also probably the better striker on the feet. So it's like I don't see usually when Gene's fighting grapplers, it's like, okay, I'm gonna get taken down a few times. I gotta get up, disengage, and then fuck them up standing. Right. But in this case, it's like I gotta get up, disengage with the guy who actually has really good jiu-jitsu as well. And now I've got to like fight for my life while he's throwing, just as many strikes at me and is a little bit better than me, and I think that's a tough ask because Gene doesn't have the tools to kind of offset like the kind of variance inducing tools you would need to like, maybe pull out a moment that wins a round or finish the fight. Like I'd be shocked shocked at him finishing Farid Basharat. I'd be shocked at him having a big moment in the fight. So I feel like he needs to run a tightrope here to win this fight, and I just don't think that's a high percentage outcome, in my opinion. I feel like I think Lapalus was a tougher version of this. Lapalus is a bit longer, a bit faster than Gene, much better striker, pretty good defensive grappler, and Farid kind of ran through him, you know?
Toward the back end.
Yeah. And Lapalus is fucking good, dude. Like, he's a really good fighter.
Good movement.
Yeah.
Way better than Gene on the feet, and that's a huge thing.
I know he's slowed down a couple times, and that could happen here, but I really do think even if he's tired, you know, he's going to be able to fight through it a bit here. I think minus 350 is like probably a fairer price than, you know, the current price, to be honest with you.
Because there's just not a lot of finishing upside, even if he is tired.
No, it's just like unless you see like massive improvements that we haven't seen. Like Miles Johns just took him down 5 times, man. I just
and we've seen Miles Johns. The guy's gassy, doesn't exactly have that
cardio
to implement that wrestling.
And they went to a 50-50 decision, basically, you know? So it's like high floor, low ceiling against high floor, very high ceiling in terms of, you know, Basharat here.
Yeah.
Moving on, we got Lord Michael. Mikhail Olasejek, he's taking on Power Bar, Marc-Andre Baralt. Current price, Baralt or Olasejek, big favorite. He's minus 500. The comeback on Baralt plus 375. What do you think? What do you think, Danny?
You want to bet GTD here, John?
No, I don't.
No, I think they're putting a MAB out the pasture here. I mean, we've kind of seen his durability just going these last couple fights, and that's really been a huge part of his game. Cardio, good durability, able to move forward, high volume, and the durability, if it's failing him in his fight against Electrichuk, I mean, he's going to put his lights out, I think, probably early. I mean, the speed difference is huge. Maybe there's a way that he tires him out. Good knees to the body, works the clinch. I just don't see it because Mikey's pretty dangerous in the clinch too.
I'm open to the idea of betting Baralt live if the pace is high enough in this fight and he's taking the shots, you know. I have no interest in pre though. My gut instinct here is that Olasejek is going to just run him over. I also just kind of feel like in this fight in general, even if like he kind of gets to the later rounds, I think it's going to be a guy with Olasejek's level of boxing and precision. I think it's going to be harder for him to get downhill against, you know. I just feel like, you know, you kind of saw it with the Curtis fight, right? Where it's like Curtis, you know, that was a close fight, but you know, Curtis, you know, he was doing the things that Baralt does, but like he was still just eating big shots, and Curtis isn't a bitch and wasn't going to bitch out there and would just bite down and, you know, counter him back whenever he came after him. I guess the way I feel about it is I think there's a lot of finishing upside for Olasejek early in this fight. A lot. I think he's going to win the first round at like an 85% clip, maybe even higher than that. I think I favor him by a decent amount, even in the second round, to be honest. Now, if Mark's still there towards the back end of the second round, maybe he gets his game going and gets going downhill, but it's not something I want to count on. You know, I bet him against Bruno Silva purely because I thought Bruno Silva was more washed than he is, but I think it's pretty clear that, you know, maybe to your point, they're putting him out to pasture and he's on the back nine here. I don't like Olasejek at minus 500. It's funny because I taped this yesterday and I was like, man, had I seen the minus 300, I probably would have played it, honestly.
You know what would have been a banger fight though? If they swapped this fight and the Walker fight. So you have Mikey O and Walker, and you have Baralt and Jacobe.
No, you need like Mikey O and Jacobe. Because like, dude, Walker would fucking probably put him on the mat and just like make love to him, you know, if it was Mikey
right,
O.
And you have 2 older guys at least going at it. The Jacobe fight, that would be a banger too, you know.
That would actually be fun, Baralt and Jacobe. No, but isn't Baralt and Mikey O are middleweight though? And those guys are the big boys. Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, you're right. 205. Yeah.
I was like, Walker would be so much bigger than Olasejek.
Yeah, you're right. Listen, he was there at one point.
I agree. Moving on. Banger fight. Gonna throw it to you again. I know you have a stronger opinion than I do here. We got Rizvan Kuniev taking on Jalton Almeida. Current price, Jalton minus 150. The comeback on Kuniev plus 130. What do you think?
Well, what I was going to say is I don't know if I do have a stronger opinion because it's a weird fight because Jalton fights are, I mean, easy at some degree to break them because, I mean, he's going to dominate. If he can dominate the grappling early, get you in those positions in the first, you know, 1 to 2 rounds, win those dominantly, secure it. It's great. His striking's not great. And even once he gets you down to the ground, if he's not finding a finish, I mean, he's just more or less limbering. You even saw it in the Volkov fight. Kuniev's a decent defensive wrestler, but like in terms of an athlete, I don't think he's much of an athlete. So I feel like the speed difference is going to be huge early. So I feel like Kuniev is going to be put in those dangerous positions early in the fight. So I feel like similar ways to like the MAB, like your angle, I would much rather bet Kuniev live, I think, to see if he's able to like not, because I feel like, I mean, not a hot take. Most of the danger is early on in this fight, but yeah, I think it's going to be real rough early on.
I can say unequivocally there is like very sharp money on the Kuniev side here. So I don't want, like, I understand the takes for it. I'm not interested in Charlton. I guess here's my issue. Like, to your point, I don't really know. I'm having like a very hard time picturing the grappling playing out, you know?
Same.
Like,
yeah.
I know Charlton's had guys grapple with him a bit in the past, but I'm not sure that I rate Kuniev's scrambling ability better than, say, like a Spivak. I don't know if I do. He's a bit more lumbering, whereas Spivak kind of more.
That's what I'm saying. There's no speed. He's not much of an athlete. Like that's
which is what I mean. And Almeida, and like even Volkov is like an athlete, whereas
100%.
Almeida
a little bit
like
of lumbering, but much more of an athlete.
And I know Rizvan stuffed 2 of Blade's 13 takedown attempts, but 11 of his 13 takedown attempts. But Blades wrestles like a heavyweight. And by that, I mean, he's kind of lumbering himself and slow. His entries are slow. He can't bend over or get down to like the hips, like all that quickly. So it's got to be about like timing and just like technique for him. Whereas Almeida really wrestles like he's in the lower weight classes. He changes levels he's on your hips almost instantly, and he can chain wrestle. He's got a good single leg. He can take you down from the upper body. So, like, I think he's going to get takedowns here. I'm, like, almost positive he's going to get a few takedowns in this fight. It's just, like, what happens after. And I don't really know, like that's the, that's the problem.
Like, his cardio seems okay, Kuniev.
Yeah, but so does Almeida's, honestly. I think Almeida's cardio is good. I mean, dude, the guy, he was tired last fight. And I know he's retarded for not throwing like ground and pound on Volkov.
The optics are just so bad. Yeah, it's a thing.
That gave me fucking AIDS, like betting on him and that happening. But I honestly, I couldn't even look, I think he deserved to get the win. But at the same time, it's like, if you're going to only throw like 5 punches in the entire round, you can't blame anybody but yourself for that fight, But I don't think Almeida's cardio is bad. And I can see, I guess the concerning thing for me is, I'd be really shocked if like we turn around next Wednesday or Tuesday, whenever we do the show, and we're like, wow, Kuniev's true price was minus 300. Whereas I really wouldn't be that shocked if we turn around and we're like, wow, Charlton Almeida was so obvious. How did we not bet him? Like that's
there's not a huge massive upside for the Kuniev side. 100%.
Right. That's
because even shuffling the takedowns, like, is he going to get a finish here?
That's my thing. I think a lot of his upside is like Almeida collapsing, down the stretch. Yeah. I really do. And so, or maybe not even down the stretch, but Almeida just having a collapse like the Blades fight or whatever. But I can really picture, I can easily imagine a scenario where it's like, oh, wow, Almeida got easy takedowns, got to mount, or was able to back control him for 10 minutes, and he wins an easy decision. But, Kuniev's a good fighter. I'm impressed with him. He seems to have a good get-up game. And it's enough that, like, with the new way they're scoring damage and whatnot, it's kind of dicey to want to lay the price on Charlton. I'm a bit interested. I bet it last fight, and it just cucked me doubly because I had the money line too. But I like the Charlton decision here at plus 400. I think it's a decent look. I haven't decided if I'll bet it for sure, but I do lean in that direction for, like, potentially a small bet on Charlton decision.
All right.
Moving on, banger co-main event. Second bet I've made so far. We got Kyoji Horiguchi coming off his triumphant return, submitting to Giro Lembekov. He is taking on Amir Albazi. Horiguchi is a big favorite here. He is minus 365. The comeback on Albazi is plus 290. I have 2 units on Amir Albazi at plus 306 at the moment. I think this line is very, very wide, personally. I favor Gooch. He's a great fighter, absolute legend. Obviously, there's some concerns with Albazi. He's had health issues over the years and whatnot. But I look at it and I'm like, man, Kyoji Horiguchi was plus 250 last fight to Tagir, and like no one really complained about it like too much, going into that fight.
Is that what he
Prior,
closed?
what?
Is that what he closed? Really?
I think he closed like 200, but he got up to like 250, 300. But he, and rewatching that fight, like, don't get me wrong, I don't want to shit on the performance. He finished Tagir, impressive. I will say though, on rewatch, it's like Tagir's leg was horribly compromised 3.5 minutes into the fight, and which, like, credit to Horiguchi, he's the one who did it, right? Like, he did the damage to his leg,
Right.
but like it was like 3 or 4 leg kicks, and he was kind of toast. And for the rest of the fight, he just didn't produce any offense. You could see he was just worried about getting kicked in the leg. Now I don't want to like blame Horiguchi for that, but at the same time, prior to that, the round they were fighting pretty competitively. It wasn't like Horiguchi was blowing him out before the leg went, and then the leg went, and that was kind of all she wrote. But what concerns me is that the couple fights prior to that, I thought he looked really poor in Rizin. He fought that Zulu dude. He had a couple of grappling transitions that really spooked me. It seemed his last couple fights in Rizin, he was getting less confident in his striking and just kind of turning into like a grapple first guy in almost every fight. He got hurt by Sergio Pettis in their second fight. Not the first one where he got knocked out, but got dropped by Pettis in their second fight. Sergio Pettis, not a guy who carries really any power in his hands. I think I don't think he's washed by any means. He looked good last fight. He's still fast. But I do think at 35 years old and 125 pounds, he's obviously, closer to the end, much closer to the end than the beginning. And with Horiguchi, you always kind of have a great striker, right? Really, good volume, in and out, very fast. He's kind of hard to ever like really find on the feet. But his weakness has always kind of been, he doesn't defend takedowns well. And, like some other people we talked about on this card, he does give his back to get up. His get up game's not bad. He's urgent, but he does give the back up. And like, it proved to be his undoing against Patchy Mix, the takedowns proved to be his undoing against Demetrius Johnson way back in the day. He's fighting Amir Albazi here. Albazi hasn't fought in a while. Obviously, coming off, got beat down to Brandon Moreno, who I believe we both bet in that fight. Look, I've never been particularly high on Albazi. He's low volume. He doesn't attempt takedowns as often as he should. But he just doesn't. For a guy that's as good a grappler as he is, he doesn't. And his wrestling's okay. It's only okay. It's not great. But his top game is excellent. He's really, really good on top. He does a really good job of getting hooks in and, locking down the position. He does a great job of transitioning. He's a dangerous submission grappler. And on the feet, he's a pretty solid technical boxer. And he's got pretty big power in his hands. And I look at this fight and I'm like, on the feet, Horiguchi should dominate minutes, right? That's like my base case. He really should dominate minutes on the feet in this fight. And I expect him to. But I do think Albazi, given that he's a 5-inch reach advantage, especially, he's got the power that he could hurt Horiguchi on the feet or have a couple, similar to the Cara France fight where he pulled a couple rounds off of, a couple big moments. He has that moment equity in this fight as well. But I don't think that's something you can rely on. The bigger thing is, though, like, I think he can get Horiguchi down here. I don't know how often he will. I kind of, in my head, project him to land like 1 to 2 takedowns across the whole fight. But like 1 takedown could be a round of the fight. If you tell me he gets 2 takedowns, I'm making him almost like a favorite if it goes to the cards. You know what I mean? And that doesn't seem like that big of an ask against a guy who historically defends takedowns at like 55%. So to me, it's like Albazi's got age on his side. He's got more power. He's got the grappling upside. And on top of which, something else that no one else is talking about, it's the first time Horiguchi's ever fought in the small cage in his career. So Horiguchi, it's gonna probably limit some of his mobility, and yeah, I favor Horiguchi. I don't get me wrong. I think he should be like minus, 140, minus 150 here. I think the market correction here from Albazi being plus 150 against Moreno and Horiguchi being plus 200 against Tagir to now Horiguchi being minus 350 here makes no sense at all. And I just think there's a lot of scope here across a lot of vectors for Albazi to be valued here. So I'm betting him. I have 2 units on him.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to come off wrong by saying this, but I kind of feel like Albazi.
You can attack me. Bring it.
I feel like Albazi kind of needs to weasel it. Because I think on the feet, he doesn't throw a ton of volume, to your point.
I agree.
Good power. Maybe he needs to hurt Horiguchi on the feet. Could steal rounds, to your point. Just like he did in the Kachoa France fight, kind of weaseled that one a little bit. In terms of the grappling, to your point, doesn't shoot a ton of takedowns. If he's able to get him down, yes, can dominate the fight. But I think on the feet, I mean, there's just a much larger gap than there is on the ground.
But like, if I tell you Albazi gets 2 takedowns and like 2.5 minute body triangles and wins the unanimous 29-28, are you surprised at that?
A bit, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
If you told me one, and he steals a round off of that, like first round. Yeah, I could see that.
Would you agree Albazi probably has more scope to win the fight by knockout?
I could say that. Yeah, I could see it. I mean, Horiguchi's like his chin's not looking great. I mean, you touched on the last fight against the African and Rising.
Yeah,
wasn't looking great there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. Like, I could be wrong. Look, like prime Horiguchi, I'd be probably fine with this number against Albazi, you know. But like, we do know his chin is his durability is declining. You know, it definitely is. So
yeah,
we'll see. Moving on, main event. We haven't talked about this fight at all, so I'm curious to get your opinion here.
No,
we got Mario Bautista against Vinicius Lockdog Oliveira. Current price Bautista -173. The comeback on Lockdog +148. What do you think?
Another one where I, again, don't want to come off as rude, but I feel like Vinicius Oliveira is a bit of like Diego Lopez in a sense. Like, not a great minute winner. Kind of needs those finishes, dynamic moments in the fight. Big stunning, like again, hurting your opponents. Because I feel like the longer the fight goes, like, I mean, his cardio, he's definitely fought through, but you can definitely see like he is struggling a bit. And I feel like Mario has a huge cardio advantage the later the fight goes. The real question would be, though, in the earlier rounds, is Lockdog able to put enough damage on Mario to where that cardio edge maybe isn't as pronounced if we are getting later in the fight, or maybe even finds a finish? Because Mario's pretty easy to find on the feet, and so is Lockdog. Like, I think an under here is great. Finishing opportunity on the feet. Mario definitely can land takedowns here and find a finish on the mat. I think it's going to be a banger main event.
I kind of swing more to the over, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
maybe a Lockdog first.
My issue is more overs, Mario. You know? I think Lockdog can finish him. I think it's more like Mario doesn't seem all that potent to me, honestly. Like his 2 knockdowns in the UFC have both been knees, right? Like, you know, he hasn't really shown really big outside of Benito Lopez, who at that point in his career was a retired realtor. You know, he hasn't really shown much ability to hurt guys with his hands.
I just feel like Vinicius is pretty available on the feet.
He is very available. He is. And like, it's funny because taping it, I find myself on the Oliveira side, like liking the Oliveira side. However, I've been so anti Oliveira, you know, throughout this Ricky. Run. I didn't bet Ricky. I bet Saeed. I bet Saeed against him by big.
Damn.
That sucked.
So
and what'd you say?
Did you bet Sopai?
No, I bet him against Sopai. Nice. So did not completely cocked. But I've just been like of the opinion that Oliveira's game is impractical for this level in this division. But to his credit, he's kind of defied, you know, my own thoughts about his technical ability. You know, he's damaging. I don't know what to make of his cardio, to be totally honest. Like, he looked fucking dead in that Saeed fight, but then he's had other fights where he's like, you know, looking great late in the fight. So I don't know. His cardio to me seems like decent. Like it does seem solid. Mario's cardio seems solid, but also in the same vein, Mario's never been 5 either. He did kind of seem like he was slowing a little bit again late against Aldo, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm with you that I think Mario is the better technician on the feet, but I do think Lockdog is the more violent striker and the more damaging striker. And I think the way he goes forward kind of lends itself to judging. You know, judges like, you know, the stuff that he does pretty clearly. I think the big question for me in this fight is, to your point, you kind of raised it, you know, can Mario go and just get on top of him and fuck him on the mat? I'm not really sure. You know, he's done that to a couple of guys, but they've all been very, very low level. You know, he hasn't had as much success grappling against the upper level. Now, is Lockdog in the upper level? I don't really know. But I do sort of feel like thinking about this fight, I think minutes are going to be close on the feet. And I think Lock Dog's got more moment equity, and I think he has more knockout equity. I think Bautista's got more grappling equity, but I'm just skeptical about his ability to dominate. And I think both of their cardios are question marks to me in a 5-round fight. So I guess with all that said, I love Mario. He's my guy, but I feel like it's a close fight. To me, it seems
it's a tough one
fight
for
to
him.
me. You know,
Yeah.
I'm honestly leaning toward an Oliveira bet. I'm leaning toward a GTD pop, and maybe an Oliveira by decision pop as well. It's gonna be like absolute fucking AIDS if I bet Oliveira and he loses. Like that. That's gonna be, that's gonna be the worst. But I think he's the side. I really do. At least based on the available data. And you know what the funny thing is about Mario too? I didn't even bring this up. Dude, has he had the weirdest fucking UFC career like in history?
Well, that's what I was going to talk about too, because when you're talking about the defensive wrestling and like being able to get him down, it's like, okay, well, he's able to maul the absolute bums that he fights, the Benito Lopez's that, and then he fights the elite guys like Umar, or elite guys who have elite takedown defense like Aldo, and it's like, okay, well, is his wrestling that good? You know what I mean? And then you're kind of in that weird like
it's true
where like he's fighting guys like this, like kind of in the mid range, and you're like, all right, can he still dominate the grappling?
I will say Oliveira's takedown defense. I kind of think the Sopai fight was an outlier to a degree because it did impress me a bit against Ricky's a real wrestler, man, and like he really couldn't wrestle him much. But dude, listen to this career. So like he debuts and gets subbed against Corey Sandhagen. Then he fights Jinsu Sun, which is like a fight of the night banger. And Jinsu Sun is like obviously out of the UFC, like not a very good fighter. Miles John's like close fight, then he lands a flying knee. Then he gets knocked out by Trevin Jones, fucking 5-star. Then this is an epic run, right?
Also,
this is an epic 4 fights. Jay Perrin, Brian Kelleher, Benito Lopez, Guido Canetti, 4 in a row.
Finishes all 4. Yep.
Then he fights Blackshear short notice, ends up being a very close fight.
Yes.
Like he just doesn't have it's really weird because like even like I would say, and it's like I would have said his best win is maybe Patchy until we watched Patchy just prove to what some of us always thought he was to be a complete fraud, and he loses to Jacobe Wicklocks. So it's like, is that even a good win? I don't know. So like his best win is like late stage Jose Aldo. It's really strange. He's just
because like Blackshear and Lock Dogs, competitive, if not favorite Lock Dog kind of fight, maybe.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And Blackshear and Bautista was a really close fight, a really close fight.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think I'm gonna bet Oliveira. I don't feel great about it, but I think
the heart doesn't feel great about it, John.
No, the heart feels terrible about it, But I do think he's the side.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But yeah, guys, that'll do it. We'll be back not next week because we have a week off. Which why the fuck they give us 6 weeks off, and then it's like
and then you have the tease with 2 pay-per-views.
Yeah, 2
back to back.
It's true.
Unreal.
But anyway, I'm glad we're back. I'm glad we're back on the podcast. It's actually nice to look at Lag's beautiful face, again here.
Yours
as
well.
Doing it
Yours as well. And the piano, the gracious piano.
Oh, yeah. Look at this living room. I got some big decorations coming in a week. So, yeah. And like what Marcus fucking said, a week off would have made way more sense on Super Bowl week. And it's like, I'm going away with my wife for my birthday this
100%.
weekend. Like, I'm not fucking I mean, I'm going to sit down and watch UFC
because
it's my birthday weekend, so I make the rules.
Next weekend, though.
Yeah, like you couldn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, thanks for coming out tonight. Drop a like, subscribe if you like the show, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Peace.